The title of my message today is A Place for You, but I imagine if you're hearing that, you're saying, yeah, but does he mean me? Right? Because people often, they tell you, be yourself. We often hear people tell us to be ourselves, but do they really mean be yourself? Or do they mean be the you who I want you to be? Because if we're not careful, we might rise to the low expectations of the people around us. The thing is that you're different than anybody else who's ever lived. We talked about with the pet blessings about how each animal is unique. Well, even more so for us. Even though we may be the same in 10,001 different ways, each of us is completely different in some ways. And it does no good to compare ourselves with anybody else. Just like it does no good to compare our marriage with anyone else's marriage, because we have no idea what's going on in anyone else's marriage. And it doesn't help us to compare our children to other people's children, because we're not raising other people's children. We're raising our own, and our job is to help them find their unique self in the world. So there's always going to be someone, though, who is out there trying to pull us down. They're usually someone who's going to say something like, who, them? Don't listen to them. I knew them when they were, fill in the blank. There's usually someone who's got you frozen in their mind in some point in time. They probably didn't even know you, who you really were back then. But here's my point. Being yourself, like your true self, it matters. It matters more now than maybe any other time in history that people actually come alive and be real and be who they are. But there's a catch. There's always a catch. Because people are going to question you if you come out and just be all of who you are. They can say, you're doing what? With who? You're going to a church? You're going to that church? There's all kinds of ways that people are going to question who you are. But there's always going to be someone who's going to want to make you the way they want you to be. I once heard a nationally known storyteller named Mama Eddie Armstrong from Chicago tell the story of the most famous spider in Africa. Does anyone know the name of that spider? Anansi, yes. All right. I thought it would be good to tell a story about an animal, since today was the day when we were doing the blessing of the animals. So the Anansi stories come from the Ashanti people in Ghana in West Africa. And there are lots of Anansi stories. The Anansi is like a trickster character and also a shapeshifter, because Anansi can turn into a man and then turn back into a spider. And a lot of these stories, they're what you see in lots of different cultures called how-so stories. They tell us supposedly how things happen. Why does a rabbit have such a short tail? Why does a snake not have arms and legs? Well, the story that I'm going to tell is the story of how the moon came to be in the sky. So as Mama Eddie told it, and I remember it, here's how it goes. Once upon a time, Anansi had to go to another village to take care of a little business. And when he got there, he hadn't seen these friends who he saw for a very long time. And so when he was done with his business, he went off to be with them. And he was, shucking and jiving and telling tall tales, as we do. And he lost track of time. And suddenly, he looked at his watch. Oh, you didn't know that spiders could wear a watch? Well, this is Mama Eddie's story, and she said it can, so it does. So Anansi looked at his watch, and he said, oh my goodness, I better get home because I have to walk through the forest, and it's going to become really dark, and I'm not going to be able to find my way home. Because remember, this is before the moon was up in the sky, so there was no moon glow at night. So at this point, he said goodbye to his friends, and he started to walk through the forest, and sure enough, as he went, it became darker and darker and darker. And then he was going through some tall grasses and some trees, and he thought to himself, oh man, I was running my mouth way too long. But just then, he saw a big white ball of light, and it was lying on the ground. And it was just lying there. It was beautiful. And so he said, wow, I wonder what that is. And he went over and he picked up the ball of light and he began to walk with it. But it was so blinding, though. It was so bright that he lost his footing. And so he slipped down into the riverbank and he fell into the water. And as he did, a big old fish came along and swallowed Anansi up. It's the life of a spider, I guess. So there he was, standing inside the belly of this fish, still holding that ball of light. And so he looked around at his situation, and he said, oh my, if anybody gets me out of the belly of this beast, I'm gladly going to give them this old ball of light. Well, meanwhile, back at home, his family had become concerned, and this is where I'm going to need your help. It was really good when I had the children and youth choirs here. They were a big help. I hope y'all can step up. His wife's name was Aso. So what was his wife's name? Aso. All right, good. So she said, children, I'm afraid that something must have happened to your father because he's so late coming home. And you know your father, he's always home in time for dinner. He doesn't miss dinner. And so one of the daughters, she stepped forward and she said she thought she noticed something. And let me tell you about his children, about their children. You're going to have to help me again. Remember their names. So because there were 3 boys and there were 3 girls. Yeah, they had 6 children. These were some busy spiders. And so the first girl's name was Sea Trouble. All right, what's her name? Sea Trouble. Good, thank you. And the second girl's name was River Drinker. What was her name? River Drinker. Yeah, thank you. And the third girl's name was Cushion, like cushion. All right. And then the first boy's name was Road Builder. Right? And the second's name was Game Skinner. All right. And the third boy's name was Stone Thrower. Right. Okay. So I know you're all looking like, how are we going to remember all this? Right? I appreciate that. I love how you're concentrating so hard. It's good. All right. So Anansi's wife, whose name was? Aso. Right. So Aso came along and said, children, I think something must have happened to your father. He never misses dinner. And one of the daughters stepped forward and she said, Mama, oh Mama, I think I can sense what went wrong. Who do you think that daughter was? Sea Trouble. All right, good. She said, Mama, Daddy was coming home through the forest and he fell inside the riverbank and Mama, this big old fish came along and she swallowed up Father. And we have to do something quickly to save his life. So one of the sons stepped forward and he said, you know what we need? We need a path to get us down the river's edge to the river's edge quickly. So who do you think, which son do you think that was? Road Builder. All right, good. You all are good at this. So Road Builder took some bricks and forged a path, and off went the spider family down to the river. And when they got there to the edge of the river, everything was so dark, and all they could do was hear the sound of the water, swish, swish, swish. And that's when one of the daughters stepped forward, and she said, you know, there's just too much water here. I got to just move some of this water out of the way. So who do you think that daughter was? River Drinker, right. So she stuck her tongue inside that water and slurped it all down. And when she was done, she was all filled up and she went outside and sat beside the river. And then one of the sons came up and he looked out into this now dry riverbed and looked out into the horizon, and there where the river would have met the sky, and out there jumping was the shadow of a fish just jumping up and down, and he said, aha, I bet that's the fish that's got our father. I'm going to go take my knife and I'm going to get it out. Which son do you think that was? Game Skinner. All right, y'all have good memories. So Game Skinner went inside that riverbed and got that fish and struggled with him and then finally got out his knife and popped his dad out. And there he was, and he was still holding that ball of light. And when Anansi walked up the bank and saw his family, he was so happy to see them, and he was just about to greet them when all of a sudden a big bird came flying out of the sky and swooped down, picked up Anansi, and started to fly away. Oh no, one of the other sons came along and he looked up in the sky and he said, I'm going to get that bird. I'm going to get that bird. Who do you think that son was? Stone thrower, exactly. So stone thrower picked up a great big rock and put it in his slingshot and pulled it back, and pyoing, it flew up and hit that bird right in the side of the head. Suddenly, Anansi was falling, and he was going to hurt himself, but one of his daughters came to help out. Who do you think that was? Cushion, exactly. I got him. And Anansi landed gently on her soft belly. Oh my, have mercy. When he got up, his legs were understandably a little bit wobbly, all 8 of them. And he wobbled over to his family and he said, I am so glad that you all came out to help me, but I have to say I'm a little bit confused. Because ever since you were small, you argued and you fussed and you fought about your differences. But look at you now. You used your differences as a source of strength. With it, you saved my life. I'm so proud of you and I'm so grateful. But I'm still just a little bit confused. Because I promised whoever got me out of here in this situation, I would share the light with them. But you've all helped me out, and now I'm not sure what to do. So his wife Aso said, I'll tell you what, why don't we pray to the sky god and ask him? And so they did. And Anansi looked up and said, Sky God, what should I do? I want to share this light with everybody. And the sky god said, I'll tell you what, since you came to me in your time of need, I'm going to help you out with this one. You take that ball of light and you toss it up to me, and I'll put it in a place where everybody will be able to enjoy its light. And so with that, the entire spider family came together, and they began to lift that ball of light up to the sky, where it's been ever since. And that's how the moon got into the sky. How about that? And it gives light to everybody. So I know what you're thinking. What does it have to do with you? And what does it have to do with All Souls? Everything. It has everything to do with you and All Souls. Because we each have something different to bring. Some of us are good cooks, and there's lawyers, and there's business people. We've got musicians and poets and teachers and counselors and nurses and gardeners and fence builders and painters and pet sitters, and you name it, we've got it. We've got people who have a lot of money. We have people who don't have so much money. We've got a lot of us who are in between. And you name it, we've got it around here at All Souls. And so our job is simple. We each just have to be, you have to be you, I have to be me, and we have to bring all of what we have to the table. And we have to trust that I am enough, you are enough, we all are enough. As long as we bring what we can, we're going to create the greatest community that would ever be possible in this time, in this place, right here. Because when we do, we literally save people's lives. Every time we keep a kid out of jail or off of drugs, or we help them get a decent education, or we help them to stay in school, or we feed the hungry, or we help the homeless, all of the things that we do, literally, I don't know, we're not one of those churches that out there trying to save souls, but I do believe and I do see that we do save lives all the time. By working together, by each doing our part, we create a great light like the moon that shines in the night sky, which is good for everybody. Now, we don't always succeed, but we try. And even though we know that we're not always going to succeed and the world might not be better for what we've done, we know that we are better for having tried. That the very act in times like this in situations with all that's going on in the world, the fact that there are people who show up and come together and believe in one another and believe we can make a difference, and we try and we do it. Even if we don't make great change in the world, it changes us and how we look at ourselves. And I have to tell you that I'm just so moved by the idea that we're creating an inclusive, multi-generational community of people who care about one another and care about the world. And I know that I feel better about myself just by participating in this community and being a part of what we are. A lot of people see the problems in our city, see the problems in our nation, see the problems all over the world, and they think, man, things are bad, and I hope somebody does something about it. But I find it incredibly meaningful to be with people who say, let's do our part. There's some piece of this that we can do, that I can do. I might not be able to fix everything, but I can fix the little bit that I can fix and do the thing that I can do. And we're taking on some of the thorniest issues, some of the most difficult and pressing issues of our times, things like race and the environment and criminal justice and education, immigration, reproductive justice, democracy, those kinds of things. And we get to work with people from all walks of life here at All Souls, and we get to work with each other's children, which I just love, and the children of our partner schools. I think that it helps us to maintain our humanity in times like we're living through, to be actually engaged in community, multi-generational, with people who are different from ourselves, who we might not show up and be friends with under other circumstances, but we meet and we say, hey, these are my people. This is my community. And we seek to make a difference in the way that we can, and we bring all of ourselves to the table. So I just want to say, I know we're launching a stewardship drive for 2025 for next year, so we can set a budget over the next few months for next year. And I just want to say, do what you can do, bring your part. If everybody does their part, will be enough. We've got people who give $1 a week. We have people who give $1,000 a week. But as long as we bring our piece in there, it's enough. And I think it's one of the coolest things. It's one of the most countercultural organizations in America, because it's a place where unlike everywhere else where you get what you pay for, here we all give what we can, and we all benefit in the same way. You don't get what you pay for here. You get the same as everybody else. So you get the same children's choirs and choir directors and classes and ministries and weddings and memorials and all the programs and things that we do here. Everybody gets it, whether you're given $1 or $10,000. Because that's the beauty of this is a different economy and a different culture. And sometimes I'm just glad that I don't have to scare people, telling them that they're going to go to hell if they don't give or something like that. Sometimes I wish I had that to hold over people's head, but we just do it. It surprises me that it works, but it works, and we make it happen. And we've had one of the largest, strongest congregations of our denomination, of our community in a long time. And where else in the world do the children of millionaires go to class with the children of homeless families? Where else? And each one knows that there's something that they're benefiting from being in relationship with each other. And we do it because everybody is enough. And we're doing something very special here and very important. And I'm so glad that you're a part of it. And I'm so thankful, and we couldn't do it without you, and you matter. And I just want to thank you and say I love you. That's all.
Round up the music when you come. Yeah. But I believe we are. Yeah. You want to battle sing? I bring commandment like I was king. And all you treat it right, the whore flicker Stephen King. King to false soldiers, take say I got tired of that lady, so I sing to my own opera. My life to the maybe cause I love you. If you did by the sword, you would be tied like a gun. Cause all guys still have more girls commit sin.